to the topic at hand tonight, the power of pictures. The beauty of journalism comes in lots of different forms, and visuals are no doubt the most powerful medium to convey a story in my books. But there's a craft and a skill to getting it right, and these days images and journalism come in so many different forms. I think journalism is getting more creative than ever. So it's my pleasure to introduce our special guests who are going to help me discuss it tonight and get a peer inside their processes. Very happy to welcome Tia Kass and Chris Gillett.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No worries. To give the spiel and embarrass you both, and for our guests, for our attendees, I suppose, I'll give a little bit of a summary about you both. So Tia Kass, you're an illustrator, street artist whose artwork for the Saturday paper on migrant workers was recognised at our Quill Awards last year in a number of categories. You've been nominated for Walkley Awards, and your work's been published various places, but including the SBS Saturday paper right now and the Overland Journal. Chris Gillett, Australian TV journalist and currently the supervising producer at ABC 7:30 program. Chris, you were previously at The Project, Channel 10, journal at the Herald Sun for 6 years, and there was a stint I found, CNBC in Singapore as well, I believe. Yeah. Chris's work's been recognised with awards in Australia and abroad, including multiple Press Club Quill Awards, a Kennedy Award, and New York Film Festival World Medals. So thank you both for joining me tonight. Really excited to talk to you both about your work, where it's similar, where it diverges, and just nerd out a little bit on your respective crafts. So to start off, everybody wants to know the story of how you got to where you are. And I thought maybe I'd start with you, Tia. Tell us a little bit about yourself. When did you start drawing? And I guess when did it become a job for you?
I've been drawing for ages, since I was probably 12, 13 years old. And probably around the age of 16, 17 was when I really started to get into it and think, oh, this is what I wanted to do for much of my life. At that time, my main focus was graffiti, as many teenagers was, and that slowly morphed into street art, a practice that's stuck with me for well over 10 years. And that sort of morph into street art was also political as well. It's around the age of 18, 19 was when I started to become quite political and observant of what was going on in the world, and same with my group of friends. And yeah, graffiti wasn't the medium of choice no more, because I wanted to be able to tell stories. I wanted to be able to convey messages. And yeah, I got involved in street art for much of my 20s, and sort of the same issue arose maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when I had this desire to tell stories and to delve deep into personal experiences and want to reflect the narratives of people who are displaced, oppressed, marginalised. And journalism is definitely a very powerful medium to be able to do so. And I sort of pitched my first story quite late in my 20s, and got rejected a few times actually, and wanted to combine my creative passion, my style of art that I developed over so many years, into something deeper, something that I intersect the written word with pictures. And, you know, the digitization of media has sort of allowed that sort of intersection of artworks and imagery with the written word to be just as powerful as ever. So that's a general overview of where I am at now. So
obviously at some point somebody said yes to one of your pitches.
Yeah, they did.
Cool.
They did. Yeah.
We'll come back to and so you taught yourself to draw. You didn't go to did you go to university and study art or anything like that?
I studied design, communication design,
Yeah.
and but I'm mostly self-taught in painting as well and drawing. I've always held that very dear to me. I don't necessarily want to be taught. I've always wanted to trial and error different ways of creating. So yeah, it's always been relatively self-taught.
Cool. Chris, what about you? Very different. Where did you get your start? Did you study journalism? And yeah, why don't you give us a little bit of a run through how you got to where you are today?
Sure thing. So I, about year 10 at school, I thought I wanted to be a journo. I had a really short attention span. So I thought the fact of being a journo, different story all the time, different people would be fun. So then got into journalism at Monash, did the degree, and then the global financial crisis kind of hit around the same time. So every newspaper and kind of TV organisation didn't do cadetships. So I found one in Singapore. So I flew to Singapore and took this job, which was horrible, but I knew that it was good on my CV. And so I thought, I'll just stick it out for a few months. And then when I came back to Australia, I'd heard that newspapers have like jobs for like copy kids, people who like answer phones. So I just used to harass this person. Like I used to mark on my calendar like every month and just call and call and call again. And then eventually one day she said, oh, you were hiring. I came in and then I got the job. And then that answering phones led to a cadetship, which then led to 6 years at the Herald Sun. And then I decided that I kind of wanted to upskill myself, and I kind of thought I couldn't see a future for myself for the next 40, 50 years in print. I wanted to kind of pick up new skills, so that I made the move to go into TV.
Yeah, massive jump. And we'll get into sort of what your day-to-day lives both sort of look at. Maybe we'll do that perhaps a little bit now. Going back to you, Tia, you've given us a few examples of some of your work. Will, who's behind the scenes here, is going to show a few on screen now. You've chosen to show us a few finished works and a few works in progress. Do you want to talk us through what we're looking at, just to give the audience a sense of the work that you do, how long it takes, the mediums you're working in?
Yeah, sure. These two examples are the first story that got published for SBS, and it was about the Rohingya community in Springvale, and it was roughly around 2018 during the mass displacement of Rohingya Muslims from Myanmar. And there's a small pocket of refugees in Springvale in the southeast of Melbourne. And my initial pitch was a comic story about the community, and it was going to be a gonzo style approach where I would sort of wander around Springvale and stumble across this cafe. That was the story that I have to say I got rejected, because it was like, who is this guy that's wanting to report on this? But coincidentally,
so you pitched up I'm gonna give you words and pictures, or I'm gonna give you a kind of a graphic kind of cartoon.
It was words and pictures, so it was more like a long form comic journalism style. And coincidentally, there was someone already reporting on that story, and I was like, well, why don't I do a series of portraits of the community? And a lot of them, there's a cafe, and you see on the right what the ex-cafe owner with his children as little comic characters. And yeah, they'll congregate in this cafe as a community and talk and discuss and drink and eat. And yeah, so these two characters are based and from that story. And the mediums I've used were ink and pencil and watercolor. Yeah.
So what's your process, Tia? Do you go out and photograph these people and then come back and work off photographs?
Yeah. So I photograph all my people, all my subject matter. And from those photographs, I would then print it off and use that as reference. And I would then take elements of their story. So, for example, if a journalist has already interviewed them, I'll take snippets of that story and then combine it into or translate it into those comic storytelling elements you see throughout. And usually, if I go super detailed with this specific medium, it usually will take about 2 to 3 months to finish one portrait. These ones probably took roughly the same. And with my paintings, it can take 6 months to a year sometimes. So yeah, it's very time-consuming and laborious work, but very rewarding.
For that SBS story that we're looking at, how many portraits were involved in that? And then that sounds like months and months and months of work.
Yeah, it was about 8. Some of them, I think, in general, these sort of artworks, I sort of did a little bit less detailed just because of time restrictions. But a few of them took a bit longer than others. But in general, my work tends to take quite some time.
Yeah. Will, did you want to perhaps play a little bit more? What are we looking at here?
So these ones I could only finish 4 in the time frame, but these ones took roughly around 2 to 3 months, and these were for a story for the Saturday paper called We Feed You, and it was a collaboration with Andre Dow and Michael Green, who the latter I worked on the Rohingya project with. And it was about migrant workers in the food industry and talking about their experiences, their fightbacks, detailing their experiences coming to Australia and what it's like in the food industry that supplies much of the country. They're the ones that pick the fruit, the veggies, stock the shelves, deliver food, and I think.
What kind of stories do you think lend themselves to illustrations, Tia? Perhaps when does an illustration like yours do you think it's more powerful than perhaps just a regular photograph?
Look, they both have their own qualities and they both are just as powerful as each other. I think what I sort of strive to sort of reflect and pursue in my creative practice is a very stylized approach to portraiture or to comic storytelling. And there's a very strong emphasis on style. And as you see here, this is a recent project that's about to be released on this coming Saturday about the invasion and occupation of Afghanistan. And this has taken about 2 years and is a co-produced piece with my good friend Anthony Lowenstein, an independent journalist, and many other Afghans who have been directly involved. And that's a painting as well. But yeah, what I like to do with my illustrations is approach it with style and a sense of idiosyncrasy, and it's pretty much an extension of me in many ways. My wit, my humour. I do these characters that intersect with the portrait that are reflections of the people I document, but there's some humour involved and there's wit as well. And I think that's, in my sense, very powerful. And lastly, the process itself is very laborious, and there is a general sort of appreciation for it. There's that sense of realism, and people are like, oh my God, that must have took ages. And I do. I want to spend a lot of time documenting and creating artworks about important people and important stories.
Yeah, it's sort of paying homage to the importance or the significance of the issue or the story itself. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll jump over to Chris. I always just am shocked by how fast we get through these webinars. But Chris, you have supplied us with a bit of a video. It's a bit of a compilation of the work that you've produced at 7:30. So just before we play it, what are we about to see, and why have you chosen that for us to have a look at?
It's a little mashup of about 6 or 7 different kind of stories, where different elements that I kind of liked that I thought would be handy. Some are music at the forefront, others are intercutting drone shots, others are using graphics to help you tell a story, but it kind of gives you a snapshot of, I guess, what my work looks like.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think are you good to play that for us?
Hello, Adele. Yes, it's Rob Costa calling. I just wanted to let you know that the test results have come in. They are very demonstrative.
Level 5.
I am looking forward to seeing you in Mildura tomorrow. Thank you, Adele.
My name is Brennan Cullen, and I live on Kass Station, which is 60 kilometres southeast of Broken Hill. When you're doing your water runs, probably one of the things that really stands out is the amount of dust that's about, and you know, the dust plumes up behind the vehicle.
We've done a bit of a deal in our household. If I do the speeches, Dad's going to change the nappies, and Mum, thank you for raising Michael and I with a fierce resilience, because it's really come in handy lately. We had a black tie wedding, so it seems really silly in contrast to how horrible the drought was. Just for us to have something else to talk about.
Our cars essentially are geared to go around 200 kilometres an hour.
Nicola Mary Gobbo was a bright kid, born into a loving family. Her uncle was a Supreme Court judge and a Victorian governor. Her high school teachers described her as reliable and eager to please. She studied law at Melbourne University, then made a name for herself as a criminal lawyer who got her clients bail.
Roll it.
Nicola Gobbo, thank you for talking to 7:30.
There are things going on in the Australian economy now that are not only unprecedented, they're downright weird. There's record low interest rates, record levels of debt, booming exports and huge government spending. So there's plenty of wood and kero going on to the fire, but it's not getting hot. In fact, it's cooling. And this is not supposed to happen. And when the pie isn't growing much, people miss out.
Cool. Very cool, Chris. Wow. Okay. So what are we seeing in there? Tell us a little bit about your job and I guess what you do on a day-to-day basis. It looks like from the outside you do a bunch of different things. Are you're shooting and editing, producing, are you flying the drones? Tell us a little bit about all of the tools in your war chest and I guess perhaps do you have a favorite kind of tool on the job?
Yeah. So my day-to-day, it's very different. I kind of oversee people's stories on 7:30, and then I also sometimes go in the field and produce. When I'm in the field producing, I either do solo projects, like profiles on people, or I'll work with really amazing journalists. I work with Adele Ferguson a lot. I've worked with Nick McKenzie, with Sarah Ferguson to produce their stories. And my role in those kind of stories is pretty much creating the look for the whole package. So I need to and I think every reporter that I produce has a certain different kind of vibe, and certain things work better for them than others. And it's trying to kind of just do different techniques that I think are interesting. Most projects that I work on, I'll try something new because I just want to keep trying new things. So, whether it's what cameras we use or how we film interviews or what music we kind of use. A lot of the stuff I usually start with a song first, and that's my starting point. And I'll find a song that I like, and then I'll keep listening to it, and then it will kind of help kind of guide me what I want to film to kind of the gaps. But at 7:30, we have amazing cameramen and editors. So they're kind of different departments. So there's someone so I won't fly a drone. Our camera crews will do all of the filming, and then we'll all get given to an editor, and they kind of bring their skill set to lift everything as well as it kind of goes through the stages.
Yeah, sure. And I guess the similarity that I'm seeing between both of the works that you both do is that there's genuinely a real obvious creative flair in there, and also just sort of a love of the craft as well. Stephen's asked a question for you, Tia. How do self-funded artists survive financially under the pandemic? Apart from the self-satisfaction found in art, can an artist survive financially? Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's just a blunt question of how are you surviving?
Part-time work. I've always worked part-time. It's always been, a reality, and I'm not someone who wants to rush my projects or sell out in any sense. I want to take the time. I want to choose the projects I do. I want to be able to conceptualize, and in order to do so, I have to work part-time. So, right now I'm in the middle of finishing off my teaching degree. I've got another month or so to go, and yeah,
nice. And will you be teaching visual mediums?
Yeah, so my subject area is art and design, but I'll probably just do replacement teaching and teach a few days a week. And I think there's a misconception in a lot of ways that if you're working part-time, you're failing in some way as a journalist or as an artist. But that's such a wrong way of looking at creativity and developing stories. It's not the pursuit of financial gain, although you have to be rewarded for the effort you put in. But there's no harm in working, hopefully a good job, and you're not being exploited. But yeah.
Chris, if somebody's interested in the kind of in the work that you're doing, or working in TV, or this sort of intersection of sort of almost cinematic film and TV or doco making, obviously you went through the path of coming up through print and whatnot, but do you ever have young people asking you, what should I do if I want to end up with your job one day? And what would you say?
Yeah, we used to have, before the pandemic, interns spend a month with us at 7:30. So we got to know them really well, and they were all uni students. I think journalism's always been really, really hard to get into. And I think that you kind of need to make yourself, you need to do as much work experience as you can. and try to get into as many different organizations as you can, and meet people and be useful when you're there. Be polite and attentive and on time, and ask every day, how can I help you? Is there anything I can do? And pitch stories. And those things will just really help. And just, I think, being around people in the industry leads to jobs that aren't always advertised, that are kind of word of mouth, that are all like fill-in roles. And you just kind of want to get a foot in the door, and then the kind of industry kind of opens up to you after that point. Follow your gut. Like, I kind of always thought it would work out. I remember being at uni, and the lecturer, first day of uni, the lecturer said, none of you will get jobs. The industry is too hard. And I thought, no way. I was like, I'll get a job. And you kind of have to have that self-belief that it may take longer than you think, but if you work hard and you think that, you know, if your gut kind of says you can do it, just trust your gut and just keep being polite, but politely harassing people as much as you can.
I guess, Tia, on that, your polite harassing eventually led to somebody saying, yeah, okay, we'll give this guy a go. Do you have any tips? A lot of people will start off or make their careers, I suppose, in their life, sort of freelancing, either illustrating or writing or doing photos, or even pitching around different publications and making a living that way, or contributing in some way that way. Do you have any I guess, sort of ground rules for freelancers and how to kind of pitch and deal with editors and things like that, things you wish you'd known beforehand, before you made that first initial knock on the door?
Just be prepared to be rejected a whole bunch of times. And editors can be quite the pain. Like, they take ages to respond from. And, but yeah, just stick with it and stay true to yourself and be passionate in what you do, and don't jeopardize your creativity or your creative passions, and try and find your sort of niche in what you want to convey, whether it be in writing, whether it be in visual form. And also don't listen to your mum telling you to go get a real job.
Shout out to Tia's mum.